What is a quote that you live by?
I'm a Christian. I wear it on my sleeve. So quotes would probably always be Bible verses. I'll give you two. One is actually not in the Bible. It's more mythological. And one is actually in the Bible. One of my favorite verses, though, is Romans 8:28, which it says that God works all things for good for those who love him. It's a very freeing and liberating verse for those of us that are Christians, because we believe that when things can be really bad, God is working it for his good, his perfect and pleasing will, which is a very, very hard teaching when you come across business closures or staff layoffs. But it's very liberating that God is working all things towards an ultimate good. So I love that. And it is very freeing that I don't have to be in charge of everything. And there is a God and I am not him. And I surrender to his will. It's this too shall pass, which was actually, people think it's in the Bible. It's not. But it's King Solomon's phrase, which is really amazing when you think about it, because it's good no matter what season of life that you're in. If you're going through the worst of times, this too shall pass, and things are going to get better. If you're going through the best of times, though, it's really humbling. This too shall pass, and this will fade away, because this will not last forever. So I love that.
And they don't.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a time-transcendent truth that applies towards all periods as an entrepreneur. It humbles you when you need it. It builds you up when you need it. Gives you hope when you need it.
My quote, I'm going to share it with you.
Yes, please.
Is from Epictetus, and it's, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. You're married.
Yep, 2 kids.
Married and 2 kids. So you're doing the father figure thing, and it's hard, right?
It's a lot, especially as an entrepreneur. There's practices that we have to sustain to keep it all together, such as honoring the Sabbath, which is really big in our family, just resting for one day. As you know, working just for 7 days straight, you'll burn yourself and your organization.
Did you ever see yourself here, though? Like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to build a thriving business. You have a lot of different business events that you're doing. And it's not just events, it's actually business investments. You're a true, full-blown entrepreneur. Did you ever see yourself here?
I've always been someone who has been into building stuff, especially whether it be brands or businesses. We have 1,000 employees in what we do, well over $140 million in revenue now a year.
Incredible.
Which in our space is a lot of money. I love finding problems and solving them, which is what an entrepreneur at its core actually is. I love building teams. I myself know my skill set. Managing is not one of them, but I'm really good at trying to find a vision, exactly how we're going to get there. Founders are rarely good day-to-day managers. Sometimes they are, but the one thing the founder has is that spark and that relentless drive to go to the next location or to the next interval. And what I have found is that is a rarity. And a lot of times as founders and executives and as entrepreneurs, you're in a genetic rarity, literally, because most of the world just kind of wants to keep things the same. And it's our job to push them and to give them the vision. I love building stuff. I have some other entrepreneurial stuff we're actually going to announce later this year. You as the founder, you have an obligation to be the hardest working person in that entity and to set the tone and set the pace. Nothing collapses an organization quicker than when the founder is noticeably working less and putting less time in than the team. Yeah. That is a recipe for catastrophe. The founder has this original and initial vision of exactly where he or she wants to see this business go or this entity go. I just visited South Korea and Japan. There's so many beautiful things about those countries. They're clean, they're orderly, they're polite. Like in their culture, you do a job, you do it for 30 years, you do it super well, and that is your duty. It's incredibly appealing in a lot of ways, but there is a dynamism that's missing. You go to continental Europe right now, which actually economically not done very well last 15 years. Entrepreneurship is largely dying. We as entrepreneurs, I think it's one of the things that makes this country so exceptional and important.
I agree.
Because it creates new wealth. It delivers for the consumer, the customer, and the citizen new ideas, better products, and it's that constant competition is always refining us towards a better version of success.
What is the biggest sacrifice that you had underestimated being an entrepreneur?
If you want to be a good entrepreneur, I learned this like 5 or 6 years ago, you have to be so clear on how you spend your time, and your time really is your most valuable resource. I mean, I manage my day down to the 5 or 6 minute interval. And that's the other thing as an entrepreneur that I had to learn the hard way. Know your nature, know what you're really good at.
Yeah.
So I always ask my team, I say, does this meeting require patience? And the answer is yes. I'm like, I'm probably not a good person for that meeting, actually. Yeah. Unless it's absolutely necessary. If it's like a long, drawn out, like HR meeting, I could delegate that. If that meeting requires quick, decisive action, problem solving, bring me in. Some people in this room might be entrepreneurs that are gifted with patience. Knowing your nature is incredibly important. That goes with time as well. I find that if I'm enjoying something, I will spend like endless amounts of time and my day will be completely derailed. So I have to try to put on very strict limits. And then as an entrepreneur, you have to obviously have very strong spiritual health, very strong mental health, connection and relational health, and then physical health. I think that people that are properly prioritizing sleep are actually better founders and better entrepreneurs. What separates the good from the great entrepreneur is someone that is able to meticulously be able to manage their time. Time is the equally distributed resource that we have to always be guardians of.
So being an entrepreneur, what is the biggest reward so far for you?
It's not the money, it's the journey. It's the memories that we've created, kind of the can you believe how far we've come?
Yeah.
What is it that really drives me? I love solving complex problems, doing the things that people say they can't actually be solved. An entrepreneur at its core is a problem solver against the tide. If it was simple, there would be no reason for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are people that, quit companies while they might be ascending. And I think there's really something admirable about that kind of ambition. Yeah. The greatest reward, I'd have to say, is just seeing the journey and seeing, obviously, some of the lives impacted along the way. Because the reward is actually the process. It's the process of solving problems. The memories that are created and the connectivity, that's what life is really about. At its core, it's about relationship. You don't want to be a lonely entrepreneur. I learned that. I bet everyone in this room would agree that what is the most precious thing you have? It's the team, it's the human beings that actually make it happen.
How do you build a lasting brand?
First of all, don't overcomplicate it. If you have a brand that everyone likes,
don't change it.
Right? Honestly, when it comes to a brand, it has to have a missional statement as to why or what you are doing, especially when you're trying to have employees. They want to feel as if they're part of something. Building a brand that will last and that will be durable, it needs to be connected towards the founder's energy and vision. I think that there is an inescapable bond between the entrepreneur and the brand that I think that far too often the experts in the corporate world want to try to separate. And I actually don't think that should happen as much.
How do you take it and then just as a team to not let it melt you down and turn that opposition or criticism into a strength?
Yeah, look, first of all feedback is an opportunity to get better. Anytime someone has negative feedback, I personally see it through to make sure that it's addressed. And I do it really fast. And I do it involving the parties and the actors that were responsible. So it's a learning lesson so it never happens again. So we run these big events, and if someone has a bad experience, I go straight to the events director. I say, what is the reason of this? You're gonna refund the money, and we're gonna make sure it never happens again. So it then becomes a standard operating procedure improvement, not just like, hey, can you make sure this is handled? And sometimes it turns out that person is wacky and they are finding something wrong. But you can tell, this is what's really important. You guys have a good antenna as founders, a legitimate piece of feedback and an illegitimate piece of feedback. When that legitimate piece of feedback comes through, you need to personally usher that through the process. Think about it. If 1 out of 100 people are not going to return and you scale that over a course of 5 years, that's your margins. As far as sustaining the brand, you want to try to be ahead of it. And this is where I think founders and entrepreneurs should never be disconnected from the lived experience of what you are trying to actually present forward. That means you guys should continually make sure you are eating the food that you are serving. How do I apply this to my life? I make our event managers go as attendees to our own events, go sit in the chair. Is the acoustics good? Nothing gets close to the actual tangible living through. It is very tempting as a founder, as an entrepreneur, when I receive negative feedback to do 2 things. To either take it personally or to dismiss it. It took time for me to be like, look, great opportunity to be better. That's not natural because you get defensive. Good to great, but it takes time. It takes mentorship. Yeah. You look at feedback as an opportunity to upgrade, not just to either get bitter or to dismiss and act as if nothing is wrong. And that's, again, going from good to great.
Tell us a 2-minute masterclass on just teaching and leading those
Okay,
Gen
so
Zers.
You have a clear set of articulated values for your company that is no more than 1 page. And in the onboarding process, you not just recite it, you get buy-in as to what those values are. We tell the truth. We don't blame people for our problem. You do not bring your personal life into the work. While you are onboarding them, you say, hey, do you have any problem with this? You involve them in that value process. Why does that matter? You have now established a standard of conduct that when they break it, like, hey guys, remember in that onboarding, you said you're not going to bring your personal life into business? Let's talk about why you did that. You need to live up to the standard. They have a tendency to try to make that there's no work-life separation. They need to be reminded to in clear details, and there's no wiggle room or excuse. It needs to be publicly displayed when you come into work, when you come out of work. And again, if there's a problem, be like, I don't think you're a good fit here anymore because you're not living up to the standard that you already agreed to. Here is the key. Your managers and your leaders must also live by those rules. They can have different privileges, but they cannot have different principles. They can't lie. So privileges and principles are 2 different things. So for us, it's worked very, very well.
Give us some guidance as to what you're hearing and thinking about the economy itself going into 26 and how should we budget our career?
Please, anything I say here, guys, take with an enormous grain of salt. Look, I happen to be very long-term bullish on the American economy. Just as a side note, reminding your workers that their tax are not tipped up to a certain amount and their overtime is not tipped now, I think is a very interesting potential morale boost. Let me tell you why I'm bullish. Because after traveling the world, both to Europe and Asia, they are telling me as a traveler, The American economy is the best. We want to buy American securities. Secondly, I think that there is a massive pent-up economic boom that's waiting to happen. I think the way that we analyze data and that it guides your businesses is going to completely change, and it will make you more profitable. The last thing I'll say is this, is the more I spend in the economy, both as an analyst and actually as a participant, the more I realize that so much of this is psychological, that if people believe things will be better, they will be better. I would say that the more that we can cheerlead the economy, the better. And the more that we can say that it's good, the more that it will be good. And if the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime actually does end up materializing, there'll be more people that have more money in their pockets. Again, don't take this to the bank, but generally, I am investing like a bull, especially a long-term bull, a 5-10-year long-term optimist. I talk to entrepreneurs, they still are in growth mode, they're in problem-solving mode. And I think as long as we keep that kind of mindset and that psychology, I think we're going to be in a very, very good place.
Thank you for sharing your entrepreneurial journey. I think that all of us learn from each other by elevating each other. So thanks for being here to
Thank
elevate.
you guys for warmly welcoming me. Thank you so much.